Man, do you guys remember when platformers were all the rage? When games such as Super Mario 64 held its own against shooters such as GoldenEye and Perfect Dark? When you could go to the local game store and see titles such as Contra next to Earthworm Jim and ToeJam and Earl? You know, the more I consider this, the older I begin to feel, but when you really think about it, aside from some rare exceptions, there really isn't much of a market for platformers aside from the Xbox Live Arcade, PSN, Wii Network, and Steam. While this doesn't mean that this genre is dying out by any means, it certainly is sad to see a genre with such potential to be fairly taken aback from the mainstream eye. But let's take a look back to when these titles were at the top of the game. And a perfect example of this is rare smash hit Banjo Kazooie. Easily one of the most successful platformers of its time, this game sold 1.8 million units for the N64 alone, and has also achieved almost universal critical acclaim. In fact, I'm willing to bet that the vast majority of you watching this video have already at least played, if not beaten, the game. So, for the benefit of those who haven't, or for those who are genuinely interested in my opinion of this title, what are my thoughts on this iconic N64 adventure? Well, let's begin this review proper and take a look at this thing. This game begins with the evil witch Gruntilda asking her magic cauldron who is the fairest maiden of them all, a la Snow White. As it turns out, this ugly hag is in fact not the fairest maiden of them all, to absolutely no one's surprise. But instead, it is our protagonist's younger sister, Tooty. Upon hearing this news, Grunty becomes enraged and decides to kidnap Tooty and stick her into a machine that would swap their beauty. While this is a rather unfortunate turn of events, you really are asking for trouble when you decide to live in a house next to a witch's lair. So upon hearing this news, our hero Banjo and his avian friend Kazooie set off to save Tooty from an ugly fate. Ha, get it? It's an ugly fate because she's a... Anyway, you may be wondering how our heroes will go about doing this. Well, Grunty's lair is split up into various areas, which all contain a level. Each area is unlocked by collecting a certain amount of musical notes, and each level is obtained by collecting a certain amount of golden jigsaw pieces named Jiggies. Each level contains 100 notes and 10 Jiggies to obtain. Each Jiggy is usually obtained by fighting a boss, traversing some sort of treacherous terrain, or by collecting 5 multicolored creatures known as Jinjos. But you will also stumble across voodoo heads in your travels. These heads are used to pay a mysterious witch doctor named Mumbo to transform you into some sort of creature in order to gain passage to a previously unreachable Jiggy. These creatures range from a walrus, to a termite, to a pumpkin. Oh, don't mind me guys, I'm just a hopping jack-o'-lantern. But those who haven't played this game may be wondering just how the hell this title controls. Well, here's the rundown. While walking and doing standard actions, you use Banjo. Banjo can run, jump, do standard attacks, yada yada yada, you all know this. Kazooie, on the other hand, can be used to lug around her much heavier partner in order to climb steep terraces, run much faster, wade through a swamp, or even fly for short periods. These levels all show a fantastic variety. First thing you know, you're in a swamp, and then you're looting ancient ruins, and then you're freezing your furry ass off in a snow level, then you're following an incorporeal hand on an organ. Man, this game is loopy. But did you know that this game had a completely different origin? In fact, this game was in production initially for the SNES under the name of Project Dream. While there is very few screenshots of this game and no gameplay footage to speak of, this game was supposed to be an RPG about pirates and was thought to be extremely beautiful. The reason it was ported to the N64 was because it was initially too big of a project for the SNES to handle, but after the success of Super Mario 64 and other platformers for the system in question, this game was redesigned to the classic that we know and love today. They just rehashed some side characters from Project Dream and voila, you have Banjo Kazooie. Now, many of us have fond memories of this game, and to be fair, it has earned quite a bit of the praise it's acquired. But why exactly is this? Well, now seems like a good time to get to the reviewing. Taking a look at the graphics, well, I'm sure some of you have noticed that I'm playing the Xbox Live Remastered version, so they do look a bit smoother. However, I really can't complain either way. The levels and characters are all very well designed, and there is very little pop-up despite the size of some of the levels. Speaking of level design, let's talk about that for a moment. Now, unlike Super Mario 64, when you collect a Jiggy in these levels, you can continue to play the level for as long as you want. Well, assuming you don't die, that is, but even if you do die, any Jiggies, Jinjos, and notes you collect will be saved. But even aside from the diversity in these levels, they are all constructed to draw your eye towards Jiggy objectives. You walk into the snow level and think to yourself, ooh, look at those giant buttons on that giant snowman. I wonder what would happen if I fly into them. Or you might swim along in a cavern and overhear a shark-looking monstrosity complain that he wants fresh air and begin to wonder how you can raise him from the depths. Heck, there's even a level in which you play it in 4 different seasons and your actions in each season affect the next one. Moving on to the gameplay, as for the standard moving, jumping, and flying, there are little complaints here as all works as it should. However, there are a few hiccups here and there. Now, when you're playing on the Xbox 360, you can swivel the camera 360 degrees, making for a much less strenuous experience. A luxury that the N64 did not have. But this doesn't stop the camera from being a pain in close quarters. While making very precise jumps, or God forbid swimming, there are times when you can't move the camera due to the constraints on the area, and due to the already clunky swimming controls, there are Jiggies that are a massive pain to get your hands on, making for some trial and error attempts. Now, you guys have heard me go on and on in my recent reviews regarding the fantastic OST of Rare's titles and how they're all just amazing regardless of which game or level in said game these tracks play. And you've just heard me say it again, so it'd be a bit redundant to go into further detail. So, in conclusion, can I recommend this game? Well, if you like platformers, then the answer is an enormous yes. Now, if you do decide to pick up this game, I'd recommend the XBLA version as it is quite polished and it will only run you $15. However, well, let me show you something. When I played this game, I decided to do a 100% run for the sake of this review, which means I gathered all 900 notes and all 100 Jiggies. Notice something wrong with the number on the screen? Yeah, supposedly this is a fairly common glitch for this version and can be extremely frustrating in a game that requires collecting all items. You know, looking back on this title which largely represented the heyday of platformers, it makes me wonder why these games would be largely taken out of the mainstream eye. Well, in the very divisive Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, the intro sequence points out that gamers nowadays don't want to run around collecting, they just want to shoot things. While this statement is pretty offensive to many gamers and slightly facetious, in some senses, it's sadly true. First-person shooters are great sellers, therefore you'll see more FPS titles flooding the market. So, will we ever see a large revival of this once proud genre of gaming? Well, I really can't say. But what I can say is that regardless of the direction that gaming takes, titles like Banjo Kazooie will always hold a special place in my heart. Thus ends a vid that's quite absurd, this tale about a barren bird. And as I conclude speaking in rhyme, this has been E-Dog, see you next time.